What would you do if someone kept slashing your tires, night after night, leaving you stranded and seething with no clue why? For Jack Harper, that question wasn't hypothetical. It was his life for 3 maddening weeks. Every morning, he'd stumble out to his battered pickup truck in the pre-dawn chill of his small-town cul-de-sac, only to find another tire deflated, rubber sliced clean through with a blade's cruel precision. The first time, he chalked it up to kids pulling a prank. The second, he cursed his luck. By the 5th, he was paranoid, scanning his quiet street for shadows that didn't belong. By the 10th, he knew it was personal. Jack wasn't a man who sought trouble. At 40, he was a mechanic with grease-stained hands and a heart still bruised from a divorce 2 years prior. His ex-wife, Clara, had moved on faster than he'd expected, marrying Greg, a slick real estate agent with a smile too wide and a handshake too firm. Jack didn't hate Greg, at least, not at first. He'd kept his distance, stayed civil for the sake of their daughter, Lily, who was 7 and the only reason Jack still spoke to Clara at all. But now, with his tires slashed night after night, suspicion crept in like damp rot. Greg's smug face kept flashing in Jack's mind, especially after he'd seen the man's shiny SUV parked near his house one evening, idling just long enough to feel wrong. The police were no help. "File a report," they said, "but without proof, it's just vandalism." Jack installed a cheap security camera, but the grainy footage only caught a hooded figure in the dark, too vague to identify. He changed his parking spot, stayed up late watching from his window, even slept in his truck one night, clutching a wrench like a lifeline. Nothing stopped the attacks. His savings dwindled with each new tire, and his temper frayed like the rubber he kept replacing. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He had to confront the one person who might know something, Clara. Driving to Clara's house felt like stepping into a memory he'd rather forget. The tidy lawn, the porch swing where they'd once planned a future, it all mocked him now. Clara answered the door, her face softening with surprise, then tightening with wariness. "Jack? What's wrong?" she asked, her voice a mix of concern and caution. He didn't waste time. "Someone's been slashing my tires, Clara. Every damn week. And I think it's Greg." Her eyes widened, but not with shock. Something closer to fear flickered there, gone in an instant. "That's ridiculous," she said, too quickly. "Why would Greg do that?" Jack pressed, describing the SUV, the hooded figure, the relentless pattern. Clara's hands twisted together, her gaze darting to the staircase behind her, where Lily's laughter echoed faintly. Before Jack could push further, a new voice cut in. "Everything okay, Clara?" It was Maggie, Clara's older sister, stepping into the room with a mug of tea and a curious frown. Jack hadn't seen Maggie in years, not since the divorce. She'd always been blunt, the kind of woman who saw through lies like glass. Clara hesitated, then excused herself to check on Lily, leaving Jack with Maggie. That's when the story took a turn Jack hadn't seen coming. Maggie lowered her voice, her eyes sharp. "It's not Greg," she said. "Clara's been acting strange for months. I think she's hiding something. You need to talk to her alone, Jack. Really talk." Maggie's words lit a spark of doubt. Was Clara protecting Greg, or was something else at play? Jack waited until the next day, catching Clara at a coffee shop where she sometimes took Lily for hot chocolate. This time, he didn't accuse. He asked, "Clara, what's going on?" "Really? I'm not here to fight." Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time, Jack saw the weight she'd been carrying. She glanced around, then leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "It's not Greg, Jack. It's me." The confession hit like a punch. Clara admitted she'd been slashing his tires not out of spite, but desperation. She'd been drowning in debt since Greg's business tanked, too proud to ask for help. Lily's school fees, medical bills, a second mortgagite was crushing her. She'd overheard Jack talking to a friend about selling his truck, his one valuable asset, to fund a new start. In a twisted panic, she thought if she could keep him stuck literally she could delay his plans, maybe borrow money without admitting her shame. "I didn't know how to tell you," she sobbed. "I was so ashamed, Jack. I thought I could fix it." Jack's anger dissolved into something heavier, pity mixed with disbelief. Clara, the woman he'd once loved, had unraveled into someone he barely recognized. But the truth wasn't done exploding. As Clara spoke, Greg appeared, his face pale as he overheard the tail end of her confession. "You did what?" he demanded, his voice shaking. Jack braced for a fight, but Greg's anger wasn't aimed at him. He turned to Clara, heart raw in his eyes. "You let me take the blame? You let him think it was me?" Greg hadn't known. All those weeks, he'd been as clueless as Jack, wondering why his wife was distant, why Jack glared at him like an enemy. The three of them stood in that coffee shop, a triangle of broken trust. Jack could have walked away, let Clara and Greg drown in their mess. But then he thought of Lily, her bright eyes and easy laugh, caught in the crossfire of adult mistakes. He took a breath, steadying himself. "Clara, you should have told me," he said quietly. "We're not married anymore, but Lily's still ours. I'd have helped." Greg, still reeling, nodded slowly. "We both would have." What followed wasn't easy. Jack didn't forgive Clara overnight. Trust, once slashed, doesn't mend quickly. But he worked out a plan with her and Greg to cover Lily's expenses, pooling what little they all had. Maggie stepped in too, offering to babysit so Clara could take a second job. It wasn't a fairy tale, it was messy, awkward, human. Jack's tires stayed intact after that, but the real repair was deeper. He learned to see Clara not as his ex, but as a person struggling, flawed like him. Greg, too, became less a rival and more a man trying to hold his family together. In the end, the truth didn't just explode, it rebuilt something. Not the marriage, not even friendship, but a fragile understanding that people break, and sometimes, they break each other. Jack still checks his tires every morning, out of habit. But now, when he sees Clara or Greg, there's no venom. Just a nod, a quiet acknowledgement that they're all trying to do right by the one person who matters most, Lily. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.